Welcome to Shift School, where we talk to experts in the field on how to make small shifts that make great impacts. I am so excited to have Michael Woods with us today. Michael, tell us about yourself. Where are you from? What do you do?
Oh, Lisa, thank you so much for having me. This is pretty exciting for me. I live in Arkansas, grew up here. I've got pretty much a wild story that I won't just get too much involved because of the time, but
Okay.
really, really fast. I grew up. My mom was a heroin addict.
Mm,
She wasn't taking care of me, so my grandparents took me. Thank goodness, or I would no
yeah.
telling where I would have wound up. I grew up really poor. My uncles and aunts all used drugs and alcohol. So
Mm,
at about 12 years old, I started using drugs and
mm.
alcohol. First started with marijuana or whatever. By the time I was 16, I was moving on to cocaine and all kinds of crazy stuff. Got a job at a grocery store.
Okay.
And this is crazy because you probably think, and the listeners probably think, the lowest position in a grocery store is a bagger, right? That's
I
what you
was going
think,
to
a
think
sacker.
carts, but yeah, yeah.
Carts. My first job, when I got interviewed, I was applying for a bagger or a cart position, and the store manager said, "Well, we don't have that position available right now, but
Mm,
we do have one that if you work hard, then the first bagger position will let you have it." And I'm thinking to
okay.
myself, "Good grief, what is lower than a bagger?"
Yeah.
And he said, I remember it like it was yesterday. He said, I need you to come in 1 hour a day, every day, 7 days a week, to clean up the meat department. It's
Oh,
called a
oh,
cleanup boy in the meat department. I was like, so I
oh.
took the job, and
Yeah.
sure enough, a month or two later, I got promoted to a bagger, my first promotion, and then I had a almost 40-year career in the grocery business that I
Okay.
retired about 8 months ago that I was an owner of a small chain that we did 50 million in sales the last year I was there.
Wow.
Now you're thinking, hey, what about the drug? What happened to the drug thing?
Yeah.
Well, at 18, I was extremely uh,
Mm,
strung out on drugs, and I'd been kicked out of my home, my grandparents. I'd getting kicked out of school, and I'd had enough. I just
mm,
had enough, and I stopped. And a couple months later, somebody handed me a Zig Ziglar cassette tape.
mm.
And I listened to that every day, day after day. And I'd never heard anybody talk like that. Like you can be what you want to be. You can do what you want to do.
Hmm.
See, I came from, my background was not like that. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
So I bought into self-improvement for the rest of my life and Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn. I could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Maxwell. So that's just a very small overview of my story.
Hmm. It's so amazing. I've learned in life when we talk about mindset and, just the little bit I know about neuroscience and psychology and that little tiny bit, how impactful the community around us is. So the beliefs that we take on from family or things that have been said to us or how people interact with us are so impactful.
Mm.
I remember when I started my Ziglar journey and thinking about all of those words that were going through my head. For us older people, we call them tapes, the tapes that play in our head,
Yeah,
and these new kids, it's like I think it's like sound bites or tracks, like
yeah.
tapes are those old things we used to wind up, right? No, but these things that consistently talk in our head and how we overcome those is so powerful. So, I'm going to jump right to your book because your book talks about staying positive in a negative world. And that really is those voices in our head that we constantly have to overcome. So tell us about your book.
Well, it does an overview of the story, more
Hmm.
goes in a little bit more deep, the first couple chapters, and then it gives us the reader 5 things that they can do, simple,
Yeah.
to change their life. Because right now, right now more than ever, negativity has spread across the country and the world. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of it is we were not designed to hear so much negativity constantly. Does that make sense? 30
Yes.
years ago, you read the paper or you watched the news at 4 o'clock and you saw the same stuff we see today. There's a war
Hmm.
or a crisis or whatever. But
Hmm.
it was 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Now it's all day. It's all day. People
Hmm.
that let it happen. They're scrolling. So they've gotten so negative, whether it be politics, whether it be job they don't like, and it's what they're putting in their mind. It just, and then if you put negative stuff in there, as a lot of folks know, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. So you have to
Hmm.
change what you put in your mind. I have a chapter called Vitamins for Your Mind,
Mm.
and what it is, it talks about all the good stuff going in, whether what we call tapes, it's on Audible now, or
Yeah.
seminars, or
Hmm.
reading. The Bible is is where we all need to start, or I started anyway.
Hmm.
And all that good stuff will change your mindset. The
Mm.
reason I wrote the book at first, I'll just tell you, a lot of people say, "Man, what inspired you to write that book?" Right? I mean, that's a good question. Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you and the viewers. At first, I was just gonna write a book because everybody said I needed to write a book to be a speaker. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm gonna write this book and I'm gonna put a couple things in there. You got to set your goals and you got to look at them every day. I'm just saying a
Yep.
few quotes, and I'd have me a
Right.
book.
Yeah.
Well, it grew into something much, much more than that because
Hmm.
I had a speech that I was doing at Toastmasters and Kiwanis and things. It was called Staying Positive in a Negative World. And I was very passionate about that speech. I was very passionate about the message.
Hmm.
So about a year and a half ago, I'm like, why don't I just take my passion that I'm really trying to spread into this book? And then it grew
Absolutely.
into something totally different. I put my
Yeah.
heart and soul in this book, and it took about a year and a half. So pretty excited about it.
That's awesome. I love that. So, what would you say? I was writing a question down as you were talking, and then you almost answered it, so I'm going to ask the rest of it. So, I love that. That's what I love about having these great conversations. Um, so, for the listener who is struggling with the negative thoughts, and you talk about the vitamins for the mind, what is the first step that you would encourage them to do to help start taking those negative thoughts? We'll just say, like, hold on to them, right? And be like, oh, I don't want to think that way anymore. How do I start changing that into a positive thought process? Because I'll tell you, when I first started the Ziglar world and Tom gave me all these affirmations, I'm like, so you want me to read a bunch of lies to myself every morning? Like, that sounds lame. And so, but I'm like, I'll trust the process. But I had to start with, because it was like, I would get mad at these affirmations. Like, you're so smart, intelligent. I'm like, okay, whatever. That's too much. But I would say, I would put in different words, like the encouraging parts that I will be or I am this. And I would start telling the truth that I knew was the truth. And it kind of grew from there. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on how do we start taking those negative ones, recognizing them, and grow positive mindset?
That's a great question. What I, because I get asked that quite a bit, especially the book,
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, there's all this stuff. And in my book, it's pretty simple because a lot of the books, to your point, on self-help are overwhelming. You're like,
Yeah.
golly, how can I do all that stuff? And
Yeah.
some of the words I don't even neuroscience, all this stuff. You're like, it blows my mind, or it used to. So one of the things I suggest to people is start really, really small. And what I'm talking about is very first thing in the morning, spend
Mm,
5 minutes.
mm,
Everybody's got 5 minutes. Sit down at your desk. If you don't have that, sit in a closet somewhere. Like in the Bible, go behind closed doors. How you say, but go somewhere where it's real quiet,
hmm.
pray or visualize a day. Hey, today is going to be a great day. That's
Mm,
self-talk. It's very, very small. Years ago, a friend of mine, and why he suggested this to me, I'm not sure, because I'm pretty excited and motivated guy. But he said, "Hey, Michael, why don't you try saying this every morning to yourself?" I'll tell you what it is in a minute. And look in the mirror when you say it and say it 3 times.
mm.
And it's a Dale Carnegie phrase.
Okay.
and it's been he's been said it for years and years and years, and it's act enthusiastic, and you will be enthusiastic. So I
Mm.
wrote that on my mirror, and it's kind of my 5 minute routine. This is it's going to align, I promise.
Hmm.
So I wrote it with lipstick, my wife's lipstick. I wrote on the mirror, act enthusiastic and you'll be enthusiastic. I said it 3 times every day before I started my day, but I would say
Yeah.
it like this. Act enthusiastic, you'll be enthusiastic. And I would just jump, and my wife thought
Yeah.
I had lost my mind. Was it silly? Yes. Did I laugh? Yes. But guess what? I'm starting my day laughing. And there is
Yeah.
not a better energy
Mm.
vitamin first thing in the morning is laughter.
Hmm.
And so I recommend to everybody that I personally know that has slipped into that negative, watching politics every single day and watching social
Hmm.
media, people arguing about restaurants or bad. I mean, it's just crazy how what people are
Hmm.
are starting to, and they just keep going worse and worse. But just to put something small and start
Mm.
very small. I'm at
Yeah.
it, and this scares people what I'm fixing to tell you, but I spend an hour and a half before I start my day. I get
Wow.
up at 4 o'clock
Yeah.
and I meditate, I pray, there's a book, I don't know if your listeners this book, Two Chairs,
Oh,
I
two
highly
chairs.
recommend.
Bopper Dean.
Yeah, Bob
Hmm.
Odin. So I do all this stuff, and by the time I'm getting out into the what I call the negative world,
Hmm.
negative world. Let's just talk about that. It's not a
Yeah.
negative world.
I
This
agree with
world is
you.
perfect.
Hmm.
It's people in it has become
Well,
negative. So
there's that.
sometimes my book, I should have said negative people. Because it's not a
Okay.
negative world. If you look at the
Yeah.
trees and the water and the oceans, and it's
Hmm.
beautiful. The world's
Hmm.
beautiful.
Hmm. The only negative I'm going to say is I have goat heads in my backyard. And those are not nice little thorns to step on. No, but I agree with you. Yeah, negativity is addicting. I've noticed that. It's that like, gosh, it just ruminates and it just sticks in there, and then it becomes like it's just hard to shake off. Like, when you get gum stuck in your hair and you're trying to get that out, man, that just really sticks. So I love what you're saying there. So let's talk about a shift. So here at Shift School, I talk a lot about what are the tangible things? What are the things that we can do? Because it's the action part that really solidifies it in our mind and our heart in what we do and who we are as people. So what is a shift that you would suggest for our listeners? Something that really impacted your life and made so much difference that they could start.
Well, I'll go back to the morning routine,
Hmm.
and I will do that, but I want to
Yeah.
and I'll tell my story really fast. Most of my life, I've been an extremely positive person. I've
Yeah.
been through 2 divorces, and I'm telling you, I was positive through the whole way. I was listening to Zig
Mm.
Ziglar, and it never bothered me. I've just been an
Okay.
excited guy. But about
Yeah.
6 years ago, I fell, and I fell hard. And
Mm.
so I got complacent at my job. Our company, it was doing pretty good at the time. So I got complacent.
Hmm.
And I started, instead of growing, I started going backwards. I'd gained a lot of weight. I was 250 pounds. I'm 180 now. I needed a hip replacement. I found out I was a diabetic. We were having problems with one of our kids. We'd bought a store in our company. We lost $1 million the first
Mm.
year. I was even
Wow.
following politics at the time.
Yeah.
Terrible time in my life. I had gotten so negative, Lisa, that it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I
Mm.
knew better. I knew
Yeah.
better. So the first thing I did, the very first thing, I grabbed the Bible and I started spending 5 minutes. Now
Mm.
remember, I spent an hour and a half now. I spent 5 minutes. And it was
Yeah.
hard. My mind would be drifting away and I would say, this is terrible. I hired a physical trainer to start eating. I started eating right. I started doing all the things. I grabbed my box of Zig Ziglar CDs. I had a whole
Hmm.
box in my closet of Zig and Tony Robbins and John Maxwell. Well, I had done replaced all my cassette tapes with CDs. It was a
Hmm.
fortune. Well, guess
Yes.
what? I didn't have a CD player in my car.
Oh, yeah.
So I bought this CD player just and it wouldn't work and it would be skipping in my seat. And my wife said, "Why
Yeah.
don't you just load all that stuff on Audible?" I said, "Crystal, I've spent thousands of dollars in my life replacing it. So guess what? I had to replace all that stuff again
Uh,
on Audible. So anyway, but
yeah.
I did. And the reason I say that, that's how important of what I put
Yes.
in my mind every day. Zig
Mm-hmm.
Ziglar talks about Automobile University.
Yes.
So everybody drives in their car, most people.
Yeah.
Even if it's a 15-minute commute, and most
Mm-hmm.
people I think it's even more,
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes a day of a podcast, of motivational book, anything will change a person within a week or two or three. I
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of friends that tell me, they say, "Man, Michael, I started listening to that." They all come. They call that what is it? That the guru, that exciting guru stuff you listen to, and they have all my friends have all these funny names for me, Mister Positive, and all this kind of stuff. And they said that stuff really works because within
Yes.
a week you just start changing. So my advice to anybody that has fell in some negativity is, first of all, be careful on social media, be careful on the news, be careful what you put in, and then
Mm-hmm.
spend 5 minutes before you start your day. That would be my
Yeah.
biggest advice. And some people ask me, well, you got to know what's going on in the world. Here's what I would say to that. How about if you want to know what's going on in the whole world? How
Mm-hmm.
about spend 30 minutes in the morning watching the news or social media, whatever you get your
Mm-hmm.
information, and then don't do it again until the end of the day and maybe do another 30 minutes. I don't do any at this point. I just don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But a lot of people need to keep up, whether they're a politician or whether when I was in a grocery business, I had to keep up with the any kind of politics about food
Yeah.
stamps and what affected my business. So what I would
Mm-hmm.
do is I'd spend 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening, but zero in between. And a
Okay.
lot of people are just constantly looking at whatever newscast and the wars and all that stuff just all day long.
Mm-hmm.
We're not designed to handle that much negativity.
Yeah, it's very consuming. Yeah. Well, tell me more about your morning routine. So you went from 5 minutes to an hour and a half. So what are you doing that whole time?
All right, this is why I really get excited to talk about this. So the first thing I did, I mean, not the first thing I did, but one of the things that I added about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So remember, I said I'd gotten real negative,
Mm-hmm.
and it lasted about 2 or 3 years there. And so I'm Googling, I'm listening to my Zig Ziglar, and I'm working out in the mornings, but I'm also Googling, hey, how do you, even though I thought I knew everything there was about getting positive, something kept coming up, meditation.
Yeah.
Meditation. I'm like, oh no, no, that's not for me. I'm a Christian
Yeah.
from Arkansas.
Right.
That's some of that Buddha stuff or whatever, which is nothing wrong with Buddha, but just I'm not going to sit on the side of a mountain for an hour. That's
Right.
what I pictured meditation. How stupid
Ah.
of me. And the guy, there was a guy named Ray, and I may be saying his name wrong, Ray Dalio. He is a hedge fund billionaire. And he was interviewed, and he said he linked all of his success to one thing:
Mm.
meditation. And I'm
Wow.
like, what? He's a billionaire and he's saying success is because of meditation? So I started looking into it. And there's a lot of actors and a lot of big, business, millionaires and billionaires that talked about this meditation. And one book came up called The Six Phase Meditation by Vishen Lakhiani.
Okay.
And so I ordered that book and I read the book. And what it talks about is all these guided meditations. Like the first thing when I wake up, while I'm half asleep, is I can't remember if that's beta or alpha, whatever state it is. I put earphones on and I go through anywhere from a 5 to 30 minute guided meditation. And
Okay.
it could be, Bob Proctor talking about your future, visualizing your perfect day. It could be as simple as let God or it says let go, let God, and it spends two
Mm.
minutes of just saying let it be, just let everything be, let God control. It
Mm.
could be 15 minutes of rain. I even have some that's just storms for 15 minutes, and there's a lot of scientific um, studies that'll back all kinds of things of what it does to your body. I wasn't, I looked at it, but I didn't study it much because I felt the difference. So I don't need any scientific studies.
Hmm.
started becoming a new person. So every morning I meditate from anywhere from 5 to 20, 30 minutes. I get
Okay.
up from that chair, I go get a cup of coffee, then I get the Bible, and then I do my
Mm.
meditation. And I personally use a devotion called My Utmost for His Highest,
Okay,
which is
I've heard of that. Hmm.
Oswald Chambers, written in like the 30s. I may be
Yeah.
wrong there, but
Well, now we
and
have to
then
say 1930s, Michael.
oh yeah, that's right. I didn't even think about that. If I
Yeah,
say the 20s, it's going to be like, oh
like
yeah, last year.
yesterday.
Yeah. And then I go into I spend a lot of time in the Bible and in my devotion, and then I do the two chairs. And when I do the two chairs, I've got to tell the story. I told the story yesterday,
Yeah.
and I've told it hundreds of times. So when Tom Ziglar, Zig Ziglar's son, had told me, he said, "Oh, Michael, I know you've got this routine in the morning. You do all this stuff." I said, "Oh yeah, I wouldn't change it for nothing." He said, "I got something I need to add to it." I said, "No." I was like, "Tom, I can't add any more. I'm already in there from an hour and something." And he said,
Right.
"No, Michael, really keep an open mind and read this book."
Yes.
And so I read this book, and I'm like, "Wow, that's different." I do a devotion, and I do prayer, and I do ask God for stuff, and I do super thankful and da, 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 da. But this was different. It talks about visualizing getting two chairs physically
Hmm.
and visualizing God sitting there in your other chair. And I have a chair. It's actually a nice recliner. We call it God's seat at my house.
Yeah.
In the first 2 weeks I did it, it was like I'm a visualizing person. So it was easy for me to visualize God sitting there and Jesus, but I didn't feel what the book talked about for
Mm.
about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
About the second week, the Holy Spirit filled this room, and I just busted and crying. And from then on, I have a conversation with him every day,
Mm.
like a friend, like a business partner, like a coach. I can't even explain it in words. And
Hmm.
here's what he says every day at the end: I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And when God says, I'll see you tomorrow, I don't know about you or
Mhm.
your listeners, the Christians on here, but man, that puts a different spin on how you're going to spend your day. Man, I
Yeah.
got to
You're like,
talk to
I
him in
get
the morning.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I gotta talk to him tomorrow. He was like, "Why did you do that? Why did you get mad just because somebody pulled in front of you? Why did you do that, Michael?"
Yeah.
so, so
Right.
it changed. And one other thing I want to add to the morning routine that may be the biggest thing, and for
Okay.
some reason my mind just didn't think about it. And I have never practiced this my whole life. Never. And when I tell you what this is, you're going to think, and your listener will think, wow, you've had all this success, and I retired at 54 as a millionaire, all this, and I'm a high school dropout. Why did you not practice what I'm fixing to tell you? And I don't know, but it's practice true gratitude every day.
Mm.
So most of my life, every promotion, every bonus, every house, every car, it doesn't matter. It was like, okay, that's cool. What's next? And my friends would say, man, you got everything. You got this great wife. You got this great job, a career.
Mm.
You got a great car. I don't have a jet. Think about that. I mean, how sad and pathetic was I?
Oh.
So Bob Proctor's teachings talked about this way to practice gratitude. And what he said, gets a pad out every day. And I do this. Write down 10 things that you're grateful for.
Mm.
Now, at first, it may be, if you're in I was at first in a negative state. So I'd have to put clean air, you know, I live in America, in a safe neighborhood, things like that. But as it grew,
Hmm.
the things started growing that I'd be grateful for. And it started growing and growing and growing. And then he said, put three people that has done you wrong on that list in your life.
Mm.
Then he said, picture them, forgive them, love them, and hug them in your mind.
Wow.
Now that might be easy for the guy or the person that pulled in front of you on the way to work. It could be easy for the person that stepped on your toe in the grocery store, right? That's pretty easy. But what about the spouse that cheated? Or what about the business partner that stole money from you?
Mm.
And it could be even worse, sexual assault. No,
Hmm.
forgive them and love them. And you're thinking, I was thinking, what does that matter?
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with them. It has nothing to do with these people that have done you wrong. What it's doing is what Bob explained, is taking negativity out of your heart and releasing it.
Mm.
And I was like, whoa, because negativity and positivity can't be in the same place at the same time. It's
Yeah.
oil and water. It doesn't go. So if
Yeah.
you've got this hatred in your heart for somebody, it could be a high, last 3 weeks ago, or it could be a high school bully. It could be that
Mm.
far, but it's in there and you may not even know it. So when I started practicing that, it was really a game changer. The gratitude pad and the releasing of the negativity. And again, I didn't mean to go so far into it because I get pretty
No,
excited about
totally.
my all this stuff I do in the morning.
Yeah. That I will say I 100% agree with you with gratitude. When I started really understanding gratitude, and besides just, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the things that I've been given or that I have, or and really practicing that, it there's a feeling in the heart that I can't explain when I'm truly grateful. And that just sits in. And it is, you are right. Like, it is hard to live angry and mad when you're grateful.
That's right.
And
That's right. You can't do it. I mean,
yeah, especially when you're dealing with someone that is just really difficult to work with. I had a coworker one time, and man, it was so difficult to work with that person. And someone said, "Well, write down what you're grateful for." I'm like, "Nope, I am not gonna do that." But when I started writing down the things about that person that I did appreciate and I was grateful for, it made it so much easier to work with them. And it wasn't betraying myself by doing that. It wasn't losing protection. It wasn't losing authority. It wasn't losing whatever we think is going to happen when we give up that negativity and that bitterness. We're better. And it's a hard thing to wrap our brains around. Well, I have learned so many great things today. So I always like to end on recapping a shift. So a small shift that our listeners can do. So I heard 5 minutes morning routine. Practice gratitude. And I wrote this down. I want people to comment if you said to yourself in the mirror, act enthusiastic and you'll be enthusiastic, but put the emotions to it. That was amazing. Yeah. What are your other thoughts? Do you have anything else you want us to end with here?
you know, the only thing I want to say is if we will become the most positive person that we know,
Yeah.
we won't only change our life,
Mm,
we'll change everyone around us. That's how
yeah.
important it is.
Hmm.
I love that. I've said that in several speeches, and I'm talking to myself too. I mean, because
Right.
I run
Same.
around with all this positive stuff, but hey, I get down like everybody else. I catch myself. My wife will look at me, okay, Mister Positive, what's happening?
Yeah.
Whatever happens, I have a flat
Right.
tire or something. That's hard.
Hmm.
Okay, my wife calls me out all the time. Hey, I see you behind the closed doors. You
Yeah.
talk about all this being so. And the only reason I bring it up is because of course I get down, of course I get negative, of course. But if you keep these um, skills or you keep these techniques, I don't like to call them techniques, but these disciplines in place, man, it's
Hmm.
just that negativity just gets squashed, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes. And it's just easier to live being positive.
Yes, it's
It,
fun. It's
it is.
fun.
Yes. I love that. All right, listeners, go get Michael's book. I'll put it in the show notes. So grab that book. Share this podcast with someone. Like, share it out. We have a lot of things in this world that we need some positive influence in. So go make the shift. Work on that morning routine. Spend 5 minutes. Practice some gratitude, and you'll be impressed on what changes in your life. All right, Michael, thank you so much. It was great having you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.